I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we are discussing Crescent City Book 3, House of Flame and Shadow. We'll be discussing chapters 7 through 15. This podcast is very spoiler heavy across all of Sarah J. Maas's series, so please listen with care. Deb, before we get into it, will you please share our nerdiest cocktail?
Of course. Tonight's cocktail is named the Middengard Fizz, and it's themed after scary-ass worms. This drink pairs well with death masks, the sweetie pie Azriel, and stupid bargains, and it may cause you to hiss, "You're dead to me! You're dead to me!" It has bourbon in it, which is very surprising because Whitney created this cocktail, but it's really, really good.
It is.
Actually.
I'm proud of myself.
I'm on my second one. Whitney's had a half and is feeling great.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It is really good. We threw in a splash of cranberry juice, which is not in the actual recipe, but I highly recommend it. I thought it was a good addition.
Yeah,
it was definitely good.
If you add it to the show notes, I'll just add. They don't know it's not in the recipe.
It's time for the nerdy and dirty recap. We've spun the wheel of names.
Yes.
Mindy, whose turn is it?
The lucky winner is Deb.
Deb.
I've not done this in a really long time.
Well, neither have
it
I.
has to be better than mine last week.
We're going back to, dear listeners, 30 seconds.
Oh, good God.
To give a recap of what we read in these chapters.
I had a really hard time with 60 seconds.
Well, I guess you're going to have twice as much difficulty. I do have the timer whenever you're ready.
I'm
Are
ready.
you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, and go.
Okay, so the chapters open with Lydia taking the Sprite Queen to burn the witch hag, but she refuses if the hag can't defend herself, so Lydia returns her back to her crystal ball prison. Back to Bryce and Nesta, and holy shit, there's a Middengard worm-shaped tunnel in the caverns, and Bryce freezes when it tries to eat her. Shadows are watching Hunt. Dun, dun, dun. It's Apollyon! And he doesn't know where the F Bryce is, and then Adis pops in, and he's like, "Where's Bryce?" Therion is kind of being a dick, and the guy's coming in to help him, and he just wants to get high off venom. Bryce and Nesta find some terrifying art, and Nesta uses ice power to trigger a lot of booby traps on the walls. I really messed up.
Not nearly as bad as me.
Can I say one more thing I wanted to say?
Sure.
Bryce and Nesta take a swim, and I fucking knew it because wingspan matters. Azriel's wingspan is the width of the cavern.
The whole cavern, yeah.
So a lot
That
more other stuff happens, guys. I only got halfway through what I thought was going to be 30 seconds.
Well, maybe we'll get into it more as we discuss it.
Someone posted on one of our read-along posts the other day, they're like, "I'm going to have to listen to the 30-second recap because I don't have time to reread this." And I wrote, "Good luck."
Yeah. I don't think the 30-second recap is going to help you.
I will say, if you listen to the whole episode, normally we do cover
everything. A lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
before we get into all of it, Mindy, will you please share our nerdiest vocabulary?
I will. So this week it's short and sweet. I picked Celine because when they're going through and seeing the story on the wall, and it just made me, it was one of my aha moments. My biggest revelations is that I was right about that.
I was going to say, you talked about that in a previous
Celine is
in one of the previous vocab.
It's the other daughter. It's
she was talking about Thea's.
Oh, okay,
yeah, Thea's daughters. And so I wanted to know what that meant and if it, gave any more clues. It is derived from the Greek name Silenus, who was a tutor and friend to the Greek god of wine Dionysus, which I also kind of mentioned that Flynn was sort of like. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays out. But it actually means, this just cracked me up, sloshing in the wine trough.
The word Celine means that?
Yes. I'm going to go Celine.
Okay.
Me too. I do that often. I Celine quite often.
The wine trough. Do you get a lot of yeast infections?
No.
That's a personal matter.
No.
Poor
So,
Celine.
yeah. So I don't know how that is going to tie in whatsoever.
if at all.
If at all.
I will say the little drawings on the cave, and when I was reading this the first time, I did text Whitney and asked her a question, even though she was like, "Keep reading." Because some of the scenes on the wall really remind me of Throne of Glass battles too. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of overlay there
Yeah.
between the two battles for sure. So I have wondered if, I don't think all the battles are Throne of Glass battles, but I do wonder if some of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just too many familiarities.
I guess we'll just have to keep reading.
I read this whole book. That question does not get answered.
It's still a question. Well, let's get into the nitty and gritty, the details, and see how much we cover. So let's start with our favorite moment from these chapters.
Well, I can cover one thing I didn't cover in my recap with my favorite moment. So what I didn't cover is that Bryce is essentially being a jackass and leaving a blood trail for the Middengard worm so that it will attack her and she can run away, right?
Yeah, that kind of sucked.
Yeah, and so then essentially Azriel's onto her bullshit and they fake that they've died or whatever, so she'll come back.
Yeah.
And they still have to defeat this worm, so they use Bryce as bait, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But my favorite moment was when badass Nesta runs up, she's reanimated this huge carcass, right? The skeleton. She runs up the skeleton's spine and downward thrust right into the Middengard worm's face. And it's so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Classic Nesta.
Right? The first part of that scene was my favorite moment when she's like, I'm going to get the mask. She's basically snaps her fingers and it just appears, because she can call it with her power or whatever. I love
Az
that.
is like, no, girl, no.
Yeah, don't do it. And she's like, whatever, we need to do this. And then she kills the worm, right? And I wrote in my notes because this is the second time I'm reading this. The first time I wrote yay, Nesta killed the worm. And I said, the Archeron sisters are badass, but not Elaine. Because we've got
She
Feyre
might have
and
killed
Nesta.
some worms in her garden.
Well, we don't know.
She don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe she'll still slay a Middengard worm. We
It
don't
would be
know.
kind of cool if she did.
I also included, this is not as important, but it was a favorite moment. Later in that same scene, when Azriel is trying to get Nesta to take the mask off, he lists, Cassian's waiting for you, whatever. And Rhysand is not on that list anywhere. And
that's funny.
He is one of the only characters not mentioned. Him and Morgan. Are the ones not mentioned.
Yeah, she really doesn't like them.
It made me laugh a lot.
So Whitney, this was actually a question that I had. Do we know kind of what is possessing Nesta when she has the mask on, or is that still to be told?
I guess it's still to be told. I mean, as far as we know, it's just whatever the power of the mask is.
But it's something with sentient feelings because it doesn't want to let her go.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to know what that being is that kind of possesses her body.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's a being as much, as far as we know at this point anyway. I don't know if it's a being as much as it is the sentient power, the power of the cauldron, right?
Light
it's not necessarily a thing, but it is kind of a thing,
So Kath Art on Instagram has a really beautiful picture, not from this book, but from the previous book, of Nesta with the mask on and her silver eyes, and it's gorgeous because her lips are all chapped and she's kind of bloody, and it's just really beautiful.
I need to go look at that because when I picture it, did y'all ever play Crash Bandicoot?
Yeah.
That's what I picture, the mask floating around in front of the face.
This is a lot better than that.
Yeah, I assumed it would. It would be. Yeah,
that's
I need to go
funny.
look at that so I can retrain my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your favorite moment, Mindy?
Well, mine is just generally Nesta and Bryce interacting. I'm here for it with popcorn. I think their whole vibe is just hilarious and awesome. I love it when Bryce says she'll make her sire pay for hurting Rune after Nesta says she's sorry about her brother. And then Nesta just says, good. Mm-hmm. That whole vibe where they sort of bonded over that, but they're also bickering against each other. They kind of act like sisters.
They do. Yeah.
And I just love that whole vibe.
It's interesting because one of my least favorite parts is how bratty Bryce is in this part of the book. She has very little care for what happens to these other people that are, gave her food and are walking with her and making sure essentially that she's safe. And one of the things I really didn't like that she did, and I felt like her character would know better, is based off what you just said. When Bryce points out Azriel's scars, not only does she know nothing about him, but it makes me feel really bad for Az because he obviously does not want to talk about it. Right. He's very traumatized by it. And you would think her knowing Rune and saying oh, my brother has scars. And, you would think she would know not to point that out. And it really bothered me. It just felt very immature.
Well, I feel like in these scenes, Bryce it's reminiscent of how Nesta was in the very beginning of Akatar.
Yeah, that's true. I'm
sort of
only
bratty,
caring about what I'm trying to get done
very,
here. That's
very
true.
self-centered and very.
Maybe that's why Nesta doesn't kill her, because she sees herself in her. 'Cause,
Maybe.
I mean, it's also kind of shocking that Nesta did not chop her head off.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely something happening with Nesta feeling drawn to Bryce, and whether it's just she recognizes the horn.
Fae, half.
Well, she recognizes
Oh, yeah.
she can sense the horn in her back because it's part of the whatever power.
Well, and Bryce was also made.
Well,
so,
right. That's what I mean. Like, she can sense that power because she was made by the cauldron or whatever. But I feel like I really struggle with Bryce in those scenes because, and I feel like this was probably really difficult to write for Sarah J. But she's with these characters that she does not know, but that we as the readers like love and are obsessed with. And so I imagine that it was really
like she's
hard.
not being nice to our best friends.
Right. I imagine it was really hard to write, like, okay, how do I make Bryce stay true to herself and write from the perspective of Bryce not knowing who these people are? Because it's not first person narration, but it's still Bryce's point of view. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's ultimately what I struggled with Bryce is like, I love these people and you should too, but for what reason? Just because I think you should as the reader, you know?
It feels out of character though that Bryce would put people in danger. Like, she knew that spreading blood around would make them get attacked. And she does say to herself, I did it because I'm pretty sure they're going to survive. And in her defense, she does turn around and go back, but it just didn't feel like something she would do to someone. It felt odd to
I
me.
agree.
But I mean, she is in a very desperate situation,
Well,
so
and
I will
I think
give her
too,
that.
she's in a completely different. She's completely out of her element.
Yeah.
So
She's just trying to survive.
Yeah, I think she just hit survival mode.
But they're not.
So,
They're not taking her out of survival mode, though. That's the thing. They're not.
and they're also not like being
Threatening
nice to her
her,
either.
yeah,
though,
yeah,
like
yeah.
they're not. They're not giving her any reason to be nice to them necessarily, other than they're keeping her alive.
right.
I think part of what Sarah J was trying to do, and
I like how you talk about her. Well, my friend Sarah.
one of my besties, I think what she was trying to do maybe didn't necessarily ultimately pan out the best, but I think that she was trying to show Bryce's struggle with Faye just as an identity, because she thinks so much in her head of like, well, they're probably just like the crappy Faye back home.
She does,
Yes.
right?
And I think that's why she's making these different choices that feel out of character, because I think Sarah J. Maas is just trying to show her own prejudice and like kind of self-hatred because of her dad.
point.
You know what I
Okay,
mean?
Yeah, I see that.
But,
Thank you.
whether she actually does that well is very arguable, right? So, Mindy, what was your least favorite
Well, we
moment?
kind of touched on it earlier. My least favorite moment, as similarly to where it was just that whole vibe with Nesta and Bryce, is that Rune in general in these chapters was my least favorite moment, just for different reasons. And some of them, one is like maybe on a sad note, and one is more of like a pissed off note. Like, I really, really found it heart-wrenching when he was trying to talk and he didn't have his whole tongue.
I had forgotten
Oh
about that
my
until
gosh,
it like
yes.
pointed it out again.
I
Yes.
legit had tears in my eyes. I was like, that has got to be just the hardest thing, to be trying to talk when you don't have your entire tongue. But then, like, he goes and he tells Lydia she's dead to him. And I'm just like, get your head out of your ass, Rune. Like,
I know.
it really, that
mean, do you
pissed me
blame him,
off.
though?
I don't, but at the same time, like, give her a chance to explain herself at
I
least.
kind of do blame him a little bit, honestly. Like,
she lied to him about everything.
but he knew going into it that he was going to be talking to a double agent that he knew was close to the Asteri, that he wasn't supposed to ever find out anything about her.
That's
so
true, but also she is like in the books one of the most hated
well,
characters.
yeah, for sure. But I mean, he went into the daybreak, and of course,
I just don't like you talking bad about Rune.
they weren't supposed to like fall in love with each other or whatever.
true.
But he went into that situation knowing that he was not going to know who he was talking to and
Right.
was not supposed to like ask questions.
They weren't supposed to fuck.
Well, and they weren't supposed to they were supposed to keep lying to each other
Right.
to keep their identities safe, right? And so I don't know. I that was my least favorite moment, when he is like, "You're dead to me."
Yeah.
And I just am like, I know I'm asking for a lot because you're chained up and like being tortured to the
don't
point.
have a tongue.
Well, but like being tortured to the point that you forgot that your tongue got cut out.
Yeah.
Like so much crap has happened to you that you're forgetting
So
what
what
has
did
happened
it sound
to
like
you.
when he said that to her?
Well, it was in his mind bridge, the mind bridge. So he had
I
a
just
tongue
wanted to
there,
see
right?
you try to figure out how to do it.
No, you're not going to get me today. No, but I know I'm asking for a lot because of the situation that he's in, but I'm like, can somebody take 2 seconds and truly think about Lydia's life? If she's a double agent, like just think about it,
really,
you know?
At this point in the book, and again, I'm not going to spoil anything because Mindy's not read ahead. At this point in the book, we don't even know everything she's sacrificed.
Exactly.
Her character gets much deeper.
But based on what Rune knows at this point,
Well, he knows she's being sexually assaulted.
Think about it for 2 seconds,
Okay.
right? Like have some empathy for her, knowing that she is Agent Daybright, and knowing also
That she's trying.
who you have known her as the Hind.
Yes.
Like put the pieces together a little bit. You know what I mean? And I really feel for her, and part of this is because I'm reading her character now as somebody who has read the entire third book, right? So like I have more of the story and I can't like forget the things that I know at this point, and I can't wait to continue because I have so many things to talk about as we continue going into Lydia's character. But I really hated that, and I feel really bad for her, and she's got nobody, and nobody will take 2 seconds to think about what her life is like, and it just really bothered me.
Sad.
I know.
Yeah.
You're
That's where
welcome.
I was too. I mean, and I mean, I'm sort of in the middle because I see where he would be upset and it would be shocking. But like, dude, you haven't even given her a chance to explain herself. You're just cutting her out like bye. And that is like the one thing. And I know that somehow that's how some people, that's how they
Process.
I was going to
process
say,
things.
maybe that's why this doesn't bother me, because I personally relate to Rune. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it. When I'm done, I'm done. Like, I will love and trust you till the end of the earth, but if you fuck me over, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair to Rune too, he went straight from your Daybright to
No
like
tongue.
getting disemboweled
Yeah,
and getting
yeah,
his tongue
yeah.
I mean, like he hasn't really had
been
any
through it.
time.
When you're reading this quickly because you're excited, you don't notice how violent it is until you are reading chapter by chapter like we have been, because
Yeah, it's
they're
rough.
laying in their own blood and filth. Like, essentially, it sounds like the little drains are like essentially clogged, right? Because at one point they cut his intestines out.
Yeah.
They have cut off the guy's wings. Rune does not have a tongue. They have lashed through his tattoos. Like, it's an insane amount of violence, and I can't believe
it's
that
really rough.
anyone in this world comes back out with any semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
And can you imagine it being the normal? We're like, yeah, they cut my intestines out again. Like, I feel
Right.
like Hunt was like, yeah, I did this for 7 years, bro.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really rough. Did you want to talk more about the mind bridge?
Oh, I did actually. So I really wanted to discuss telepathy, right? Because that's always something that we see in fictional books and something that we see a lot in movies. And so I really wanted to find real life stories of telepathy. And
Ooh.
the short answer is they don't really exist.
Okay.
Wah, wah.
I couldn't even really find good articles with stories of people who had convincing stories to share. However, there are many stories of twin telepathy that are odd
yeah.
that I thought I'd share from thethoughtcatalog.com and BuzzFeed.com. So these are just firsthand accounts from people on these two websites, and both the articles are linked in our show notes. So the first one is, in high school, we took a quiz on the assigned reading we had done from To Kill a Mockingbird. One of the questions was, what did Scout dress up as for Halloween? And it was a ham. And it says, my brother and I both included similarly drawn pictures of stick figures wearing ham costumes in the margins of the quiz. So the second one is, one of us was going up the stairs and the other was playing in the living room. My mom was standing in the doorway of the hallway and the living room so she could see us both. Whoever was on the stairs fell and banged their knee, but was fine. Instantly, the twin in the living room, who couldn't see the stairs and was unaware of anything that happened, suddenly grabbed his knee and started crying.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Isn't that
wow.
crazy?
That's creepy.
Yeah.
So the third one is, it says, I'm a fraternal twin and we definitely have some twin magic going on. One time my twin left school to get a blood test and I had to stay in class. A bit later, I realized that I had a broken blood vessel on the inside of my elbow and didn't think much of it at the time. When we saw each other later, I realized it was the exact same spot where she had gotten blood drawn.
Ooh, that's
So a lot of
really
these are more like
weird.
body telepathy kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 4. Once in the shower while shaving, I managed to nick the inside heel of my right foot. It wouldn't stop bleeding, so I bandaged it up, and later on, I noticed my twin sister had a bandage on the same spot as mine. After a couple of days, I asked her why her cut hadn't healed yet, and that's when I learned it wasn't a shaving accident, but she had gotten her first tattoo. My sister was getting tattooed in the exact same spot at the exact same time as when I cut myself. And it says even we were freaked out.
That's weird.
Wild.
So I'm like, was it not healing because her tattoo was healing? Right?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
That's weird.
So, 2 more. In 4th grade, my twin brother and I got sent down to the principal for cheating on our essays. We'd written almost the same thing word for word, but we were in different classes and had never discussed it.
Oh, that's weird.
How do
is
you also
weird.
tell the principal, no, it's because we're twins?
I know, yeah.
He's like, bullshit, you were not.
Right.
Okay, so the final one. I'm a fraternal twin. I'm a girl and he's a boy. When I was younger, my brother had poor speech and didn't talk very often. So whenever he wanted something, he would just look at me without saying anything and I would translate correctly to my parents.
That is so wild.
Oh, that's
Right. So
freaky.
I would have loved to have found some like mind bridge telepathy
Right.
stories, but I think the twin telepathy thing is actually kind of cool.
it's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah,
And
like
there's
I-
so
cool.
many of those stories out there too.
Right, there really are. And, you know, people in science are like, oh, it's just because you have, like, the same behaviors and all this shit. But I didn't want to bring us down. There were a lot of stories about them, like, dreaming about someone and, like, they had died, like, at that exact moment and stuff. But it was really, really
There's
interesting.
been actual studies, sociological studies based on like nature versus nurture, where they'll separate twins for years and years and years, and they'll end up having like basically the same life,
Right.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
it
It
is
is.
crazy. Genetics are strong, my friend.
Yeah,
If
they
you
are.
look at my children and my husband, you would see that. So yeah, twin telepathy is a thing, but I couldn't find anything there. I found one short article from 2018 where it was like someone said hi to someone in 3 different countries, but it was all through like EKG, so it wasn't super interesting. It wasn't like they could hear it. It was like their brain waves changed or something, and I'm like, okay, that is not what I was looking for. I wanted mind
Google.
I was looking for mind bridge fucking.
I can't believe you didn't find
When
examples of
I'm
that.
traveling, I can mind bridge my husband.
If we ever find research on that, friends, we'll let you know.
Yeah, I'll be in the research project.
Yeah.
For sure.
What about biggest revelation?
Well, I want to know what yours is because I know how deep you get into these books.
I had 2. So one, you kind of mentioned in your, I think it was the recap, Nesta has grown in her power a lot and her control over it and her ability to just kind of like shoot her silver flame power across.
Down the wall?
Yes,
Yeah.
like to trip the booby traps or whatever. I was like, oh, well, look at you,
Well,
girl.
I love how she like just rolled her eyes and she's like, here.
Yes, like it was not a big deal. It wasn't a lot of effort or anything. It was just like second nature to her. So I just really enjoyed that little detail. And, you know, nobody made a big deal about it because Bryce doesn't know like how long she's had this power or not or whatever. But I just really liked that. I thought that was cool. And then my other big revelation is just the Middengard worm. The fact that it exists under the Court of Nightmares. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
what now?
And no one knew.
And no one knew. And it's Bryce's description of it. It is more horrifying than any of the demons from hell that she saw in the first Crescent City book.
Right.
And I'm like, even the Crystallos that like bit
Yeah.
her, that is saying something.
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
remember that
especially since,
detail.
I think of it as like a big pink worm from SpongeBob.
I know, right? It's clearly not.
And the way it's described, I mean, the circumference of it is
It's
like the size of a
huge.
bedroom.
Yeah, it's
You're right.
humongous.
Yeah.
And the biggest revelation of this Middengard worm is that it consumes power.
Yeah, I was
like,
Yeah, like
wondering
it
about
basically
what?
like sucks it in, right?
Yes, like Nesta used her power and it just like
Yeah.
absorbed it. And I'm like, okay, hold up now. So,
So it can't be the same as the one Feyre. Well, I guess she
well,
wasn't
no, because
using power.
she killed it.
She killed it, but I mean, I wonder if that one would have absorbed
I wondered
power
that too because
Well, she didn't have
she
power
wouldn't
to
have had any
absorb.
power,
Yeah.
and everybody else's power had been severely muted by Amarantha. So nobody really but Amarantha would have used power against it anyway. So I wonder if it's this specific worm somehow, or if it's like just a new feature that we didn't
upgraded.
Yeah, like we didn't get to
New
see
and improved Middengard,
right? But
2.0.
I really enjoyed those two details: the consuming the power and the fact that it's scarier than any of the hell demons that Bryce has encountered, because she's encountered a lot, a lot of demons, right? Like I thought that was crazy, but I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
Mindy, what was your biggest revelation?
Well, I touched on one earlier in our nerdiest vocabulary, but both of mine have to do with the fact that I was right. So,
about what, friend?
So the first one was about Thea's other daughter being named Celine, which, if you'll remember as a recap, I really think Selena is going to come into this at some point.
Sardothian.
Yes.
From Throne of Glass.
Yes, I
love her.
So we'll see if I'm right about that. But the other one was that Apollyon, and I didn't know that Adis was also in the shadows watching Hunt that whole time.
I don't think he actually was. I think it was only Apollyon, and then when Hunt said, like, is Bryce with you, he went to get Adis.
Oh, okay. Well, that's true. But still,
yes.
That it was actually, a prince of hell watching.
Well, it wasn't Hunt going crazy.
Yes.
My biggest revelation also has to deal with Apollyon and Adis and Regulus. Is that how you say that?
I don't know. That's how I say it.
It really seems that all three of these characters know that Bryce is in the Akatar world, right?
Yeah.
Adis hints that it might be possible that they know where Bryce is, and Apollyon's pretty much like, let's not get any romantic ideas here, because it's almost like too good to be true that she could be there, right? And then Lydia points out to Rune on the Mind Bridge that Regulus has over 1,000 mystics looking for her through the entire universe.
Yep.
And he has to be terrified to be putting all of their resources into trying to find her. But also he's trying to get back to that planet or space or plane of existence. So Regulus seems very, very desperate, and it makes me wonder what he will do if he finds Prithian. Like, that's really scary for me. But that was my biggest revelation. I'm like, oh, everyone kind of knows where, like, these quote unquote villains kind of know where she is already.
Yeah.
They just don't know how to get there.
Except Hunt.
Exactly.
Everybody except Hunt and Rune are like, we know where she is, but we're not going to say anything.
Also, we don't know how the fuck to get there. We would be there.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yes.
So did you have a favorite spicy scene, Whit?
Not spicy, but I did have a favorite scene. I really, really love all the scenes down in the caves and the tunnels with Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel, mostly because I really love the glimpse into Nesta and Azriel's friendship. That
they have like inside jokes now.
I know.
Like they are genuinely friends, as opposed to Azriel being friendly to her because she's his friend's mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just really love that, especially the whole scene with him getting the mask off of her. He cares obviously about Cassian, but he cares about Nesta outside of the fact that she is Cassian's mate. And I just really love that. I thought it was really sweet. Him, when she takes the mask off and he like catches her as she falls over and like pets her hair and is like, thank the mother. I'm like, that's really sweet.
Yeah, like he was really scared there.
Sweetie Pie Azriel. We don't get to see that a lot. And that brings me to my deep dive, because one of the bonus chapters from the Wal-Mart special edition of House on Flame and Shadow. Yeah, the Walmart.
The Wal-Mart edition.
It's the Walmart edition.
Is that the one we picked up on the way to Charleston?
No, that was for Blood and Ash.
That's right. Yeah.
This was just like an extra scene of Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel as they are taking a rest from their like walk that will never end through the forever long tunnels. And they talk a lot and share personal information with each other. And there's kind of like a couple of different really major moments that I'm like, this means something, but I don't really know like what it means. So they're sharing different personal information with each other. Bryce asks how Azriel and Nesta met, and Azriel says Nesta beheaded an evil king, which I love that, because like that is a very small part of the story. Yeah. And they're like, well, we don't really know, how to go there. But Bryce is like, well, that's badass, which I just really love that. And I love just those little comments that Bryce makes about Nesta, showing that she sees Nesta as the strong warrior that she is. And I just really love that, because Nesta has been so concerned about being like a pampered brat, you know what I mean? And she's not anymore. She used to be, but she's not. And Bryce kind of like validates that. And we see small glimpses of Azriel and his actual personality, which I really, really love. We talk.
He's so snarky.
He really is. He's really funny. And we learn a bit from Bryce about being a human in Midgard, which I'm 99% positive that this little tidbit we did not know before. Apparently, humans are all forced to serve in the army and are all sent to the front lines in the fight against the rebellion in Midgard. However, there is a test that the Asteri make the humans take, that if you pass at a certain level and show that you're smart enough, they'll give you a different job and you don't actually have to serve in the army.
Interesting.
Right? And so Bryce's mom, Ember, passed that test and did not have to serve. And her stepfather, Randall, missed the cutoff by 1 point.
Oh, wow.
1 point. And
it makes you wonder, though, is this part of what leads to the rebellion in Prithian? Like, because we still don't know what timeline everything is on, really. I mean, we know that Bryce is speaking a language from 15,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So then they move into a really interesting conversation about moms. So Nesta, M-O-M-S, moms. Nesta compliments Bryce's mom, and Bryce says Nesta's mom must be really proud of her badassery. And Nesta's response, I'm just going to read the quote. Nesta's back stiffened. My mother would be thrashing in her grave if she knew I was a warrior, if she knew I wear trousers every single day and that I was mated to a fey male. I can't tell what would have horrified her more, me marrying a poor human man or becoming what I am now. And I'm just like, dang, that is so sad.
And she has done so much and has been so amazing.
Right. And she's like,
she's worried her mom would hate it.
Right. Well, she knows her mom would hate it. Right. And so this leads into Bryce trying to ask Azriel about his mom. And this was one of the most interesting moments to me. So I'm just going to read this little section directly from this bonus chapter. This is where Bryce is talking to Azriel at the beginning of this quote. You've got the broody look of somebody with an awful mother, too. Care to share? Nesta snorted. Az never talks about his mother, and neither will our friends, so I'm guessing she's even worse. The Illyrian snarled softly. My mother is anything but awful. Nesta tensed, like she was surprised she'd gotten such a response from him. I was joking, Az. I didn't even know. I don't want to discuss this. Azriel cut her off coldly. Bryce didn't miss the wounded gleam in Nesta's eyes. Attempting to salvage the conversation, she said, well, for what it's worth, my best friend Danica had a shitty mom too. And then later in the passage, Bryce goes on to say, Danica said it built character. I think her mother's cruelty made her a kinder, more thoughtful person. She saw how Sabine treated others and was so disgusted by it, she wanted to become the opposite. Danica lived in terror of turning into her mother. Nesta didn't say anything, but there, a shallow nod. Like she understood, like she lived with that fear every day.
Oh,
that's really sad.
Right? And so like this weird moment between Azriel and Nesta, which is weird to me because no one will say anything about Azriel's mom. Because like they have talked to Azriel about his mom a little bit in Silver Flames. Like, are you going to go see your mom? You know what I mean? Yeah. I just thought that was really weird. I thought it was weird that Nesta like didn't even know that it was a subject that she shouldn't bring up. That feels like something that she should know at this point. Mm-hmm. But it just really struck me. But also this realization that Nesta grew up with Sabine basically as a mom.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
ugh.
That's rough.
Yeah.
But it explains a lot about Nesta.
Yes.
I feel like I could write.
Well, we kind of knew that just from reading Nektar, but not to that extent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. We get to see Sabine, and we never actually get to see our Archeron mom. We just hear about it. But anyway, I feel like I could write a 50-page thesis about that like that little snippet of that conversation. So we do get a sweet moment a little bit later where Azriel apologizes to Nesta for snapping at her and is like, it's not your fault. You know, you don't have anything to do with it. I'm sorry I snapped at you. And she says, there's nothing to forgive. And I thought it was really sweet. But Last but not least, the biggest reveal, in my opinion, of this bonus chapter is during a discussion of being fae and the idea, like, essentially you're going to live forever. And like, what is that like? Bryce is asking them, like, what is that like to go from being a human to knowing that you're going to live essentially forever? Azriel says jokingly to Nesta that he hears having kids makes the time go by faster. And Nesta basically like rolls her eyes and says that she wouldn't know how to be a mom because she was raised by a terrible mother. And Az says gently, that doesn't mean that you'll be one. And Nesta says, well, Feyre is proof of that. She's a perfect mother, according to Nesta, which again is like a huge moment in and of itself that Nesta is like complimenting Feyre to Azriel and in front of this like
old
basic
Nesta would have been
stranger.
like, her baby's not even that cute.
Right? Exactly. Like there's a lot of personal growth happening here. It seems to be hinting to me that Nesta and Cassian are at least like talking about having kids, and Nesta is afraid that she'll be a horrible mom, which we know as moms, the three of us, if you're worried about being a horrible mom, you're probably not going to be a horrible mom because horrible moms don't worry about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just don't even think about it. But I really thought that was interesting, and I wonder if in the next ACOTAR book there's going to be a focus on Nesta still.
I'll be honest,
I don't know.
I really hope that she like doesn't have a baby all of a sudden, because she's like in this, she's still finding herself.
Yes.
And
I think this conversation shows that. Right.
It's going to be important before she has her own children, and she's obviously not ready. And I mean, she still has a lot of ass kicking to do. Not that you can't do that as a mom, but when you're 9 months pregnant, you can't go into a swamp, and you shouldn't go into a swamp and cut someone's head off.
I mean, look at Feyre's activity in Silver Flames, right? Like there wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah.
Like, which in fairness, it wasn't her book. But the only other notable part of this bonus chapter that's just really kind of fun is Bryce uses her phone to play music, basically from like iTunes, for Nesta and Azriel. And she plays different types of songs. She plays like a folksy song that is really important to Bryce that they're like, yeah, that's great. She plays classical music from a ballet called The Glass Coffin that I want to put a pin in and come back and discuss that at a later episode. And Azriel loves the like electronic dance music.
Shocker.
He loves it. And that's not important at all, but I just think it's a fun tidbit.
I do keep wondering when her phone's going to die.
It dies in this chapter.
Oh, okay.
In this bonus chapter, she uses it to play all this music, and then it dies.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a whole thing that she's like, well, now I can't look at my pictures of Hunt and Rune, but oh well, you know, like maybe I'll see them again someday. So I go look this chapter up because it's worth reading to read the actual words, because there's so much going on in all these different conversations that I don't have time to get into here. But I do want to give you two funny quotes. So this is Bryce. Both of these quotes are Bryce talking about Azriel, which I just thought was really funny. She says, Nesta says, like, what are you doing? And Bryce says, oh, nothing. Just your usual predator in the night warrior staring at me while I sleep. Which I think is really funny. And then Bryce says to Azriel, you're supposed to maintain the image of big bad assholes, not tell me you're a bunch of crime-fighting do-gooders. You can do good, Azriel warned, while still being bad. Bryce whistled. I know a number of males back home who could only dream of delivering that sentence with such cool. It made me laugh a lot, but I highly recommend going and reading that chapter. So you have to Google a bit for it, but if you can find it.
Well, and I will say we're not going to link it because it seems like there's been some crackdown online, but you can get it in the Walmart version, which will be linked in the show notes.
Yeah, so go buy the Walmart version.
But I'm also not going to buy 5 versions of this book because that's fucking ridiculous.
Well, that's what I'm here for, to tell I will be sharing all the bonus chapter tidbits throughout these episodes, but I think 2 of the bonus chapters won't come until after we're done with the book. Okay.
Well, wah, wah. I know that you started that with your favorite scene, we don't really have a spicy scene in this section, but I still did a spicy scene, and it was when Azriel's wings span the cavern. That is the hottest thing I've ever heard, because wingspan does matter in these books. And the fact that it spanned an entire space tells me something. Andy likes electronica. Andy has tattoos. Andy delivers cool lines like you just said. So I really hope the next book is about Azriel.
I mean,
yeah, I do definitely want to know more about Azriel.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
But not Elaine.
Yeah. My favorite scene, you'd already mentioned, it's just when Nesta used her power to trip the booby traps on the wall. I can picture it.
Yeah.
Just seeing that silver power tracking on the walls. It was a very great imagery.
It was. I agree with that.
I thought it was really good. It was a good show, don't tell kind of writing that SJM is so good at.
Yes.
Well, can I just keep going on the Az train? Because he's my chapter MVP.
Sure.
I mean, I'm like, we just love Az. So not only has he just nonchalantly followed Bryce and Nesta for miles in this cavern, he just has some top-notch snark, which also brings me to my favorite quote. So Bryce says, "Those were your shadows against my light earlier?" "Yes," Azriel said again, and Nesta chuckled. And Nesta says, "And he's probably been put out about it ever since." And then Azriel says mildly, "Seeing you go into that freezing river helped." I loved that. And then I brought this up earlier, but he really just notices Bryce's bullshit about the Middengard worm and uses it to his advantage.
Yeah.
And he's literally just watching the entire time. And he even says, "Why aren't your hands healing? Your knees healed.
Yeah.
What's going on with your hands? What's up?" And he doesn't ever be like, "Bullshit." You're
Right.
right. And he just waits to see what she's going to do, because that's what our little truth teller does.
That's what he does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our little spy. So I just think he had very little words in this section of the book, but he didn't need them.
He pretty much usually has very little words.
Right.
Yeah, but he
But
still
he says
showed
so
more.
much without.
I really
the
hope
words.
he is a super dirty talker.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
He's going to talk her through it the whole time.
She's doing such a good job. She's such a good girl.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's like, I envision him as a griffin from Bonsatai.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to be really bummed if that's not accurate. Mindy, who
Yeah, if
is
he
your
wants to make love, the whole fandom's going to be pissed off.
tender and gentle? Like, no. Mindy, who's your chapter MVP?
I picked Lydia because she's really the only one who still has power to do something to help as this leader, and she doesn't hesitate to wield it.
Yeah.
Like, she's already got plans. She's already figuring out stuff to do. She's, I still don't know what, even though they talked about it, I'm not sure where the whole, like, bringing that Sprite Queen in. I don't know what she was actually going to do. Like, was she really going to use her to...
I don't think we're supposed to know exactly what is going on there yet.
So, but, again, obviously she's got plans, and she's got, thoughts about what she's going to do, and she's got plan A, B, and C, and she gets shit done.
Yeah. Lydia is actually my favorite secondary character. My chapter MVP is Sarah J. Maas for the shout out to Azriel's wingspan. That was my chapter MVP. But no, I picked Lydia for my favorite secondary character, basically for all of those same reasons. She's having to stay 25 steps ahead of everybody else to keep herself alive so that she can continue to like be this leader, double agent that she is, right? Which just got to be exhausting.
Yeah.
To just like constantly have to plan like that is, I mean, it makes me tired just thinking about it.
And realize like how it's going to affect either side and
and to play that fine line, like it's really crazy. But also specifically the fact that she took the tonic in these chapters to force her period to come early so that she can skip an event and not have to have sex with Pollux anymore or again, I guess.
Yeah, that was pretty smooth.
Yeah, I was like, to even have to like think about that just sucks.
So can
but
I
then
say,
I was like, good job.
I know.
My favorite secondary character is Lydia's cycle.
Yeah.
I literally put that down. I said, she's so brilliant. She just wanted to ensure that she got some time to herself.
Yes. Like, I don't want to sleep with you right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like Rachel McAdams on Mean Girls. And she's like, why is everybody so obsessed with me?
Right.
I'm just going to take this tonic so you'll leave me alone.
Real. Leave me
But then
alone.
also she hides her burner phone in a box of tampons because Pollux is such a douchebag that he won't touch even the box.
Right.
So to all the men listening, tampons will not hurt you.
Yeah.
They are made of cotton. Your shirt is made of cotton. Chill the fuck out.
Not a big deal.
It's cotton.
Well, that cell phone was the other part of why I picked her for my secondary character, because she just like crushes it in her with her bare hands, which I was like, I didn't know
It's
she
so
could do
crushed
that.
up that she just like lets the particles float out the
Yeah,
window.
it's basically
not-
like ashes.
Yeah.
And I was like, how'd you do that? Like,
There's so much
She
more
has
to her
bad
that we don't know.
I know. I was like, dang, girl, look at you. But no, I love Lydia. Lydia is the Nesta for me. Like, I will defend her until my dying breath. And if you don't like her, then, you're wrong. Yeah, exactly.
What if she and Nesta get in a room together? Do you think they'd
Oh my
hate
gosh,
each other?
I feel like they would hate each other at first, but then eventually they would become really good friends.
Right.
But at first, I think it would be real rough.
That'd be some awesome sapphic sex.
Oh,
That would be some mean, awesome
I didn't
sex.
go there, but
I didn't either
don't
until
disagree.
just now.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
So, Deb, I know you already shared your favorite quote, right?
Well, I haven't
Mindy
shared my
needs to do her
secondary
second.
character.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And actually, it's something.
I was just thinking about Lydia, and you had already
it's something
said that.
we really haven't brought up yet, that because most of these chapters are Bryce, Azriel, and Nesta, but my favorite secondary character is Ethan, because there's that whole thing with Therion, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to help Therion and find Bryce. So he bargains with the Viper Queen, which was
that was stupid.
This did not get said in my 30-second recap.
but valiant. It was definitely stupid, but definitely valiant. And he also notices Sigrid's potential to lead. So whereas the Primes did that for him, he is seeing that in her.
Yeah, his stupid bargain is the one mentioned in our cocktail description.
Yes,
That would be even
so dumb,
but for good reasons.
I know. Like
he is
his
trying to
intentions are
do
good.
the right thing, but he and Therion just kind of keep making bad decisions.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are very similar.
They're very impulsive.
Yes, they're coming from a good place and they're trying to do the right things, but they just don't. They're
Think
not
it
doing
through.
them the right way.
No.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Yeah.
But we'll have to keep reading to
Yes.
see how that all turns
How that
out.
pans out.
Mindy, what is your favorite quote?
I had 3. Of course.
You must choose.
I loved when Nesta asked Bryce what the difference between her and the Asteria is, and Bryce goes, aside from the fact that I'm not an intergalactic colonialist creep.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
Yep,
that.
okay, that's how you describe him. And then Nesta says to Bryce regarding being bait, from what I just saw, you're a fast runner. You'll get away in time. Probably. Classic Nesta. And then this is just the sweet one. I just love that Bryce thinks through love all is possible, even getting free of death masks. That's like after they get rid of the mask off of, because he's talking her through all the things that she loves. Yeah,
That was my favorite quote too.
Yeah, so sweet.
Oh, is it really? You guys are so sweet.
It is. Yeah. What about questions?
So many questions.
I just picked 3 for myself.
I have 3. One I've already given you, because what possesses Nesta, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't Apollyon and Adis help the boys get out of the dungeon? They were right there. And they can obviously get in and out. They know how to do it. That kind of bugged me a little bit.
Yeah.
But then also, when are we going to get a threesome with Nesta, Cass, and Azriel?
Maybe in the next book.
I'm like waiting, patiently.
Probably so is Nesta.
Right. I mean, she's fantasizing.
Maybe
about it.
they've already done it, and that's why they've got this friendship thing going now.
I hope so.
Maybe.
Oh, maybe.
That's now canon in my mind.
Yes.
Right. They've been fucking.
I declare it.
Fucking.
What questions do you have, Mindy?
Some of, like this one is one that I've just constantly had. Like, who the hell is Hunt's dad? He keeps getting brought up. What was his? They say he was bred for a purpose.
Yeah.
What is that purpose? I'm just
What you mean?
yeah. Someone says the thorn crown tattoo is not new to the Asteri.
This was one of my questions
Is
too.
that
Can you
maybe
give me context?
Valve?
I don't remember that.
Adis it's basically like, I do know some things, but I can't tell them to you.
Talking about Hunt's halo?
He like points to Hunt's halo and he says that the black halos are not new. They have been the Asteri's form of torment for millennia.
That reminds me of the collars.
Right.
That's why I said Valg. I was like Valg,
Right.
perhaps. So
That was my
there's
question,
got to be
too.
some kind of connection there.
Yeah, that was my question too, of like, what does that mean exactly, and have we seen it before? It, like, us as readers of
Right.
Sarah J. Maas. So it feels
This
like a
one,
Valg to me too.
I definitely could have gone back and like found out by reading, but I didn't have time. So, did we know that when Nesta killed Lanthus, did we know that he was? Did they call him a Daglin specifically, or is that something that like now we're just finding out?
I don't think that we knew that. I think that Cassian I think Cassian just described him as being like a death god,
Right.
and like really, really bad. Stay away from Lanthus.
Like they didn't know very much about him, right?
I think.
Well, and I'll be honest, I've only read Silver Flames once, so I don't remember that all that much. Did that happen in Silver Flames?
Yes.
Yeah.
So are we supposed to think, though, that the Daglin are a lot like the Valg? Like that they're very similar creatures?
I think we're supposed to think that the Daglin
and the Asteri
are the Asteri.
Yeah.
That the Daglin
so there
and
was
the
one
Asteri
left, and it was Lanthus, and Nesta killed it?
I guess that seems to be what she was saying. But yes, when that happened in Silver Flames,
they did not like call
I don't think there was
But
any
there's still
talk
so
of
many
Daglin.
similarities between the Asteri and the Valg, too. So, like, I continue to wonder if all three of these things are either, like, cousins of each other, or are they the same thing?
I believe that they are.
I think they're connected, at least in some way, if not being the exact same things.
I think that they are, but I don't have like evidence.
proof.
Well, we see like an evolutionary progress of them even in Throne of Glass, right? Because isn't it in Tower of Dawn where the one is like a spider, and then like the other ones are like standing upright and stuff? Though, isn't she like the sister of
the spiders were the like servants?
I don't like a same creature though, right?
I think so.
Okay, so these could be
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I need to go back and look that up.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of creatures that are black that have like collars.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
and are
that's true.
awful.
Did you have other questions?
I have just a couple. This one is just, why can Bryce and Nesta's swords kill the unkillable but not Azriel's?
Ooh, that's a
dagger.
good question.
Because they're all like speaking in the same...
especially the Star Sword and the Truth Teller definitely have something happening between them.
So I just thought that was a very weird...
That's a good point.
Sort of thing that was left out. And then finally, the whole thing with Bryce's star. Like, I totally forgot about Nesta's tattoo and her bargain with Cassian. Like, did we know then that it was star-shaped? Like, did they describe it as star-shaped? Okay. So then Nesta said... What?
I don't know that Nesta's 8-pointed star is from her deal with Cassian.
Oh, okay.
I think
she said it at first it was, but then she says, I saw it before in No Place Good. And so I'm guessing either she saw it in the cauldron or in the prison at the Dusk Court.
I'm assuming
I'm going to find out the answer to these questions.
I don't remember, Mindy, if it makes you feel better. But I really need to read Silver Flames again.
I think I do too now.
I think it would help me a lot in this book.
Well, add it to the list.
Well, as I'm reading through these chapters, I'm like, we did the reread of Crescent City, but I really feel like I needed a reread of some of ACOTAR too, just so that I could make some of these connections.
That's what I'm here for.
Yes. Well, I figured.
Yeah, but you're not going to tell me to put my hands on the headboard. So
I will not. That is accurate.
I need all of that too.
Well, I only have a couple of questions. Was that all your questions?
That was all my questions. Yes.
I only have a couple because the one about Ada is talking about the halos not being a new thing. That was one of mine too. The Viper Queen says, talking about her venom, the fact that she shares her venom and gets her people addicted to it. She says that that's a sacred bond amongst my kind.
I pointed that out too in my notes.
What's your kind though, girl?
Yeah.
Like, have we seen her before?
I feel like she's also bullshitting.
Well, that's true too. But she says things sometimes that makes me feel like, and maybe it's just Sarah J. Maas.
She's Valg.
Maybe Sarah J. Maas is like setting it up because we know that there's going to be at least one more Crescent City book. Like, this is not a complete series. So maybe this is set up for some other stuff that's just not happened yet. But she says things in a way that makes me feel like I'm supposed to be making a connection to Throne of Glass or ACOTAR or something. And I just don't get it.
Yeah.
So
Sarah J.,
that's a question.
We don't need a release date, but we would really like to know what the next book is at least going to be. Is it
Yeah.
ACOTAR? Is it a Crescent City? Is it
I
a Throne
think
of
general
Glass?
consensus is that it's ACOTAR, but I think that's based on just the fandom wanting it to be ACOTAR and not based on anything real.
Yeah.
But, the only other question that I have is, what is Cassian, Rhysand, and Feyre doing while Azriel and Nesta are like chilling in the tunnels?
That's what I was looking forward to. Is I'd like some more inner circle.
I want to see them all.
Yes.
And I want to see them all for just as long as they're walking in the tunnels. And I also wonder, I don't think that it does work, but Rhys's mind connection, it wouldn't be able to work down in the tunnel because it does have like a range.
Well, I mean, I don't know. He talked to Feyre when she was in the Spring Court.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was his mate. That was talking down through the mate bond, not like, I don't think he would be able to do that with Azriel or Nesta if they were in the spring
Like
court.
telling them what to do and stuff?
It's just like being able to talk to them and be like, what's going on? That kind of thing. I wonder if, I don't know that his mind speak or whatever would work from that distance, or if he is keeping tabs with them. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, what is Cassian doing while Nesta is like down in the tunnel, not able to communicate with him?
Jacking off.
He might be. You know what? I would really love a bonus chapter that's not of Cassian jacking off, but of just a Cassian POV.
I'll take it.
Like his POV during
Like,
this time frame.
Was he
like
freaking out? Like, why is she
like
still down
what
there?
are you guys all doing?
Yeah.
I just want to see some Cassian. Anyway, that was really whiny, and I apologize for that, dear listeners. So, what are we looking forward to as we continue reading?
What's Bryce going to find in the cave? Because it's taking a long ass time.
That's getting to the end of the tunnel is one of the things that I wrote
The light
down.
at the end of the tunnel, please.
Right. What is the payoff is what I wrote. Yeah. What else?
I mentioned that I just wanted to see more of the inner circle, and then I'm just looking forward to more Bryce and Nesta interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I wrote down besides getting to the end of the tunnel is I want to see a rescue for Rune and Hunt and Baxian.
Yeah,
right? I want to see that
definitely.
rescue. It seems like that's what Lydia is working toward. And I said, I cannot handle any more disembowelments and tongues being cut out. Like, I need that part to be done, and I need the rescue. I need a rescue to happen,
I
right?
think also, I really need Lydia and Rune to like reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like that to
For-
be some kind of just resolve for her. Like,
Yeah.
don't
To
know.
not be dead to him.
yeah.
Like, have
Like,
a
that's just the
conversation.
end. Yeah.
Have some empathy.
If she's dead to him, though, that means I've got a shot.
Fingers crossed.
I'll just take one night. That's it.
Were there any other tidbits, pieces of info?
I know you said you didn't want to hear any more about like disembowelments and like weird stuff like that.
Sorry.
But so we do meet a new to us as a podcast character of lore in these chapters, and it's the Hag, which I'm going to try really hard not to laugh every time I say the word hag. I got my information from Wikipedia and ancientorigins.net, and those are linked in the show notes. But there are some nasty hags in this lore. So to start out with, the word hag comes from hagtes, which means witch in Old English. It generally refers to just an old wrinkled woman or a fairy or goddess that takes that form. And I feel like they're often depicted as like hunched over with
Yes.
having a large nose with a wart on it.
Like
I picture
Snow White.
Yes, I
Yeah.
picture the old lady in Snow White whenever I think of one. But one kind of thought-provoking item I found was that a hag is usually malevolent, but it could be a form used by shape-shifting deities, of which Wikipedia specifically mentioned the Morrigan.
what the fuck?
Really?
Yeah. So maybe Moore can shape-shift? I don't know. So
That is
Into
also
a
a
hag?
character that we know nothing about.
so little about. Yeah, I want to know about Azriel and Moore. Like that, those are the ones that I'm constantly curious
Well,
about.
and Moore is like Elaine, not even mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, the last
She's riding a horse in the snow.
the last
that's
we
the last we saw.
The last we saw of her was in Silver Flames,
Yeah.
but I think I don't know how much time has passed between the end of Silver Flames and Bryce showing up.
Right.
So
Anyway, I thought that
That's
was
interesting.
the very, very cool sort of tidbit. So these are all like just different types of hags. So there's a common type of hag called the night hag, which is just terrifying because this one likes to sit on people's chests while they're sleeping and send them nightmares.
We've talked about this before.
Well,
in
and
another
then
episode.
and then when they wake up, this person can't move or breathe for a moment, and now like we call this sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
but that's the folklore surrounding it.
Yeah.
I remember
we talked about it in Midnight Mass. I
it
think
was like a god or goddess or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Interesting.
sometimes hag stories evolve into ways to make children behave. So like a lot of these sort of creatures, that's what they, don't let the boogeyman get you or the
Right.
monster in the bed or whatever. So like most nursery rhymes and fairy tales were that. And a hag dwells in water and has skin described as the color of green pond scum. And that was used to deter children from staying too close to the water's edge. It was said that this hag would drag a child who was standing too close into the water, drown them, and sometimes eat them.
That sounds like an alligator.
Yeah, so these water hags had really creative names. They went by names including Nellie Longarms, Peg Powler, and Jenny Greenteeth.
Oh, that's what they called me in high school. Which kind of sound like
pirates.
Yeah, they do, yeah. Arrgh.
That's what they called you in high school?
I'm Jenny Greenteeth.
We were somewhere yesterday. I forget. We were at an amusement park called Holiday World. If you all aren't from this part of the country, it's awesome. But they had this little sign up, and it was like where you throw balls at cans, but it was called Uncle Sam's Milk Cans. And I looked at my husband, and I was like, that was my nickname in high school.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, so these come some interesting names. The next one we've actually heard of is Baba Yaga. And it's from Slavic lore. So this was Baba Yellowlegs in Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
This is the kind of hag, I guess she was. So, but they're witches in that. Which is this, I guess, what hag is. But
I guess.
I never think of them as being the same thing, but essentially they are.
Knox Draven calls North Draven Baba Yaga in...
Oh, really? I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. Well, okay. So this one's from Slavic lore, and it's probably the most well-known of the hags. She lives in a small cottage that walks around the forest on chicken legs.
Like her legs are chicken legs?
No, her house's legs are chicken legs.
Her house's legs.
Yes.
I read a book where the house... got up and moved like that, and now I cannot remember what it was.
Well, it was definitely about a Baba Yaga.
It feels like a fever dream now. Did I actually read that book? Am I making this up?
Well, she likes to tend to her stove and will seek out children to put in her stew. This is the kind of witch, and
Hansel and
obviously
Gretel.
in Hansel and Gretel. Yeah. So parents would also use this tale to warn their children what happens when they misbehave. A hag is going to stick you in her stove and
Can
eat
you imagine my kids if I told them that?
Right?
They would straight out. Last night, Robbie didn't realize. I helped Annabelle get ready for bed. We hadn't brushed her teeth. And I said, when we come back upstairs, we'll brush her teeth. Well, then Robbie took her back upstairs, thought she had already brushed her teeth. And she got in the bed and then realized, I haven't brushed my teeth. And I heard her wailing, hysterically crying. And she said, my teeth are gonna fall out in my sleep.
Okay, get this shit.
From just one time not brushing her teeth, she thought they were gonna fall
Good for you also.
Yeah, Mom win.
We took Sadie to the dentist when she was like Annabelle's age, so 5, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a sub dental hygienist. And she told Sadie if she didn't brush her teeth, she was going to get bugs all over them. Talking about bacteria.
Yeah.
But I looked at her and I was like, you may not say that to children.
Did she call them sugar bugs? Because I've heard that
No,
before.
but she called them bugs.
Just
And I'm
straight up
do not
bugs.
tell my
Gross.
very irrational 5-year-old.
Yeah, you don't know this child.
There's going to be bugs on her teeth.
I'm gonna have to deal with that for the next 3 years.
Some people should not be able to
Still
interact
doesn't
with
brush.
people.
No, I'm kidding. She does.
I keep waiting for the bugs. They don't
Nothing's
show.
happened, asshole.
Sorry, tell me more about hags. Is the next one called the Whitney?
No. There's only a couple more. So there's one in Filipino lore and this one's called the Aswang, which looks like Aswang.
I was just about to say.
So this one is a witch vampire were-being hybrid, and all I can think of is Supernatural and Dean saying werepires.
The Jefferson Starships.
Yes. So speaking of Supernatural, you know how Dean always says that witches are just gross and he hates hunting them because of that?
Yeah.
Well, the Aswang likes to sit on top of people's houses, waits for them to go to sleep, and then sneaks in to either drink them dry, devour their insides, or eat them whole.
Hungry.
If a witch makes a deal with a demon to become an Aswang, then this particular one will prey on the innocent and make things like rice, bones, or insects come out of every orifice of their victim.
I would choose rice.
Lovely.
If those were my choices.
Rice.
If those are my choices,
I
I'm
don't
going
know
with
why
rice.
rice is thrown in there.
It reminds me of the orzo pastas from Butcher and Blackbird.
Yes. Okay, it just gets worse.
Oh, good.
So this is
Keep going.
this is the last specific one. This one is called the Ketepi, and she rides her tiger at night while she searches for victims.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, as one does. When she finds them, she puts a spell on the residents to put them into a deep sleep so she can feed off them by sucking the toes of the men.
Girl, you just
Yeah.
have a foot fetish.
Let me repeat that.
She doesn't ride a tiger. She's like, well, I ride a tiger so I can suck on their toes.
The toes of the men. I thought that was just very odd.
That's bizarre.
The next day, the victim will wake up sluggish, having had their virility drained.
Through their toes?
I guess.
That's not where my husband's virility
The Ketepi will keep returning until their virility is completely drained and they wither away. Sometimes she'll have sex with the male, causing the wife to think he has been unfaithful, and then the hag will feed off their anguish until their lives fall apart.
Oh,
That's
well.
not nice.
Yeah, so some versions depict the Ketepi killing her victims by plucking out their tongues and torturing them by inserting sticks into their orifices that burn like fire.
There's a couple guys I'd like to stick fiery sticks up.
Doesn't she sound delightful?
I mean, I was thinking it wasn't so bad if she's doing this while you're in a deep sleep, but then she's like ruining
Then she's
your
got to
life.
go and stick
I'm gonna shove
burning
some-
things in your orifices.
He's like, man, I have some fiery poops, literally.
Something's happening.
So that's all some different. There are so many out there, but those were the most interesting ones. But it is believed that many of these hags started as pagan gods, and then over time got morphed into something more sinister as like a punishment. Which, thanks, organized religion.
That was great, Mindy.
That was a fun deep dive.
That is cool.
It reminded me that there's so much lore out there that we still don't know about.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Our nerdiest thing is never going to be out of topics.
No, absolutely not.
There's always something fun to discuss. Sucking on toes.
Fiery poops.
Oh, man. Well, I think that's everything for this section. So, friends, that's it for this episode. Next week, we will be discussing House of Flame and Shadow, chapters 16 through 23. We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody. Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.